lady in the class, she was bringing up some things told in the Puranas, and she was just very confused, and I told her, like, don't read that, like, it's just confusing. Or we're live now, huh? Yeah. She was asking about, like, how we hear about all these rishis, like cursing people, and I said, and she said, I don't understand. And I told her, my advice is, like, stop reading all of that, It gets very confusing. Because a lot of these things or all of those things, are concerned with the saguna plane. We're not interested in the saguna plane, the plane pertaining to the modes of material nature. And those things may appear sometimes like as a kind of cover over the inner lila, the inner divine nature of the Lord's pastimes and his associates. They may appear sometimes as a cover, like Mahabharata also, it's not actually, a book in the line of pure devotion. It's not so helpful for us to read. It's helpful because it's giving some background, and it's also a very attractive entry into the Vedic world for many people, but it's not actually dealing with the essence, the cultivation of pure devotion. So, all these things, they can confuse us, actually. So, what's given by our Guru's literature, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Samhita, these books are. And Srimad Bhagavatam also is dealing with the essence, but it is also a little tricky, because there's some good amount of these peripheral things there too, and so if you're not reading under proper guidance, then it's easy to get lost in there.
That's why this bhajan is so nice. Like, just focus on Mahaprabhu. If you know Mahaprabhu, then all these external stories not so important.
See, Saraswati Thakur, he gave this one talk once, talking about ontology and morphology. It was made as a booklet. Our Gurudev appreciated that book. And ontology referring to, like, what is the substance? What is the essence? What is that eternal current? And then morphology is like the empiric view, like the historical, empiric, external view. When I was in Portugal a few weeks ago, there was one lady who joined our program, and she was a professor of the history of religion. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Like, on one level, we're all talking about the same thing, but on another level, we're talking completely different language, right? Religion, and then like actually practicing religion and studying the history of religion. Two completely different things, antithetical things. And she actually asked me if I could tell her about, like, the circumstances about exactly how the Bhagavad Gita came to be written down, and like how that process took place, and I was just very frank with her, and I said, I really don't know, and actually that's not our concern so much, this divine message has come. I'm not going to come and put it in the laboratory under a microscope and analyze all these surrounding peripheral details, right? But the medicine has come, And another point I mentioned last night is that, we can think of it like our gurus our gurus like our gurus have studied all the Puranas, they know the Puranas, they know the Vedas, they know everything. And they've, and with all of that knowledge, like they've extracted what's helpful, necessary, and enlivening for us. And they're giving that to us in this very condensed way as this little sweet, little candy, right? Like some throat candy. It has some medicinal properties. And behind the production of that candy, there's so much research, there's so much knowledge, so much that has been eliminated and added, subtracted and added. There's so much, years of research and volumes of, records of information, and that's all behind this little candy, chocolate favorite throat sweet. But okay, yeah, we're not going into this with our eyes closed. We need some little information, but not so much, Not so much. They've done all the hard work for us. They've done that for us.
And the urgency of our situation.
Right. That's another thing. Yeah, if we really feel the urgency of our situation, then that would change our view, We don't have time to be, armchair philosophers. Right? So, yeah, too much curiosity about these things is not so helpful. This pariprashna is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, like sincere and relevant inquiry, right? This is helpful for us. What is truly relevant for our progress? This is recommended. Let's read some Chaitanya Charitamrita here. I don't remember exactly which verse Gadadhar Prabhu ended on yesterday. Or was it the day before? It's the day before. We're almost at the end. Oh, he must have finished the chapter. Yeah, it's the end of the chapter. He must have finished. I'll go on to the next chapter. So here we are in chapter 11 of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And there's an intriguing title, Veda Kirtan. The Veda Kirtan pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And I haven't found a clear meaning for this word, this Veda Kirtan. It's something like surround sound, referring to this like pervading sound, coming from the kirtan. Something like that, but it's never exactly translated here. Dasa Vrindavanam Vande Krishna Dasa Prabhum Tata Chanavatar Chaitanya Lila Vishtar Kadino Do Nityananda Padabja Kadunare Nabushito Vyaktachano Burachincho Vavande Vyasarupino Shri Guru Gaur Gandharva Govindascha Ganaisaha Jayanti Patakaschacha Sarvesham Gurunartino. Okay, so beginning chapter 11 of the Madhya Lila. Atyudandam Tandavam Gora Chandra Korvan Bhaktai Shri Jagannatha Gehe Nana Bhavalankritanga Swadamna Chakre Vishvam Prema Vanya Nimagnam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu merged the entire world into the ocean of ecstatic love by performing his beautiful dances within the temple of Jagannath. He danced exquisitely and jumped high. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Dvaita Chandra, Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Sri Advaita Prabhu. and all glories to all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Adodin Sarvabhauma Kohe Prabhu Stane Abhoy Dande Hojari Korini Vedane. The next day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya requested Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give him permission to submit a statement without fear. So that tells you already he's a little nervous. Prabhu kohe koho tumi nahi kichu bhoye jog jahoile kariba jog jahoile noy. The Lord gave the Bhattacharya assurance that he could speak without fear, but added that if his statement were suitable, he would accept it, and if it were not, he would reject it. Yes, you can say whatever you like, but I will only accept it if it is appropriate, and if not, I will reject it. But yes, go ahead, say what you like. Sarvabhauma kohe prataparuja. And I can say, like, this type of trepidation, we experience that with Gurudev, right? Devotees could be in some anxiety to bring things up with Gurudev. And you never could be sure necessarily how Gurudev would respond. Because sometimes if he felt something, he could be very honest, and if something was not up to the mark, he may just not even respond to you. If someone will ask a question, he just won't even, he could do that sometimes, Usually that would be someone who was a little closer, right? Part of the inner group more. Just may just look at you or hold up something he's reading, or if he didn't think it was a suitable question. Sarvabhauma kohe prataparujarai utkanto hoyache toma milibade chai. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, "There is a king named Prataparuja Rai. He is very anxious to meet you, and he wants your permission." Karne hastadiya Prabhu smare narayan Sarvabhauma koho keno ajogja vachan. As soon as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this proposal, he immediately covered his ears with his hands and said, "My dear Sarvabhauma, why are you requesting such an undesirable thing from me?" Virakta sannyasi amar raja darashan stri darashan sam vishya bakan. Since I am in the renounced order, it is as dangerous for me to meet a king as to meet a woman. To meet either would be just like drinking poison. So this is let's read this next verse. There's a quotation from Chaitanya Chandroynata. Niskinchana nasya bhagavad bhajanon mukasya param jigam shvarbhava sagarasya sandarshanam vishayinam matayoshitam cha hanta vishabhakshanato pyasadu. Greatly lamenting, the Lord then informed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, "Alas, for a person who is seriously desiring to cross the material ocean and engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord without material motives, seeing a materialist engaged in sense gratification, or seeing a woman who is similarly interested is more abominable than drinking poison willingly." So this is we can say a large part of this is to do with the culture, right, of the time. Right, that there's this strict expectation of sannyasis, right, that they will remain aloof, renounced, from the material flow. and a king means money and women, right? So everything that a renunciate is supposed to avoid. So of course, in the subjective sense, it is helpful to avoid association like that, and then it was also cultural. That was a large part of it, that to keep the prestige, right, of that position, Right? That was the culture. People wouldn't take him seriously as a sannyasi. So that is also there. Yeah, Gurudev, he was speaking about this once and saying how like according to the environment and the culture, then Krishna consciousness may be presented in different ways, right? And he mentioned that he drew a comparison between the way that Mahaprabhu carried out his movement and the way that Avadut Maharaj was continuing. Because Avadut Maharaj's style is employing, Vaikuntha Vritti, right? Employing everything in the service of the Lord, and putting on big festivals and so on, and Indian dance and all these things. But Gurudev was saying, this was Mahaprabhu's time, this was the culture. And so Mahaprabhu was honoring that, and we're not here to create a social revolution, right? Something to remember. So generally, the recommendation is we adapt to the circumstances, right? And we present Krishna consciousness in the way that is suitable, right, to the era, the environment that we're in. But then going back to this specific pastime, on a deeper level, really we have to understand that this is all the Lord's Leela, right? And he's playing with the king, actually, right? Because the king is a great devotee, right? The king is not a materialist at all. But really Mahaprabhu is playing, in the mood of separation with him, right? Pulling on his heartstrings and pushing him away. And so the king's yearning, desire to have the darshan of Mahaprabhu is increasing more and more. And this is kind of like an ongoing theme throughout the Madhya Leela, Chaitanya Charitamrita. And so many beautiful things come out of it, actually. Like one point which is very nice to see is how the associates of Mahaprabhu, they're all so concerned for the king, and they want to help him. And like one after another, like Sarvabhauma, Ramananda Rai, and others, they're all trying different ways, by which Mahaprabhu will to convince Mahaprabhu to give his mercy to him and meet with him. And then eventually the way they conquer Mahaprabhu is they arrange for the king to come and secretly massage his feet, right, when he's passed out in ecstasy after the Ratha Yatra. And they give him, like, dress like this and go at this time and chant this shloka, and and then they know exactly how, and then sure enough, Mahaprabhu, he, his heart is melted by that. So on a deeper level, like, that's really what's going on. There's this wonderful play between the Lord and his devotees that's playing out, this exchange. Sarvabhauma kohe satya tomar vachan Jagannatha sevak raja kintu bhaktotam. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, "My dear Lord, what you have said is correct. But this king is not an ordinary king. He is a great devotee and servant of Lord Jagannath." Prabhu kohe tatapi raja kalos sarpakar nashtanadi sparsha jaiche upaje vikar. Mahaprabhu said, although it is correct that the king is a great devotee, he is still to be considered a venomous snake. Similarly, even though a woman be made of wood, one becomes agitated simply by touching her form. We have a quotation here, Chaitanya Chandradvainata. Akarar api betavyam strinam vishayinam api yataher manasaksho bas tata tasya kriterapi. Just as one is immediately frightened upon seeing a live serpent or even the form of a serpent, one endeavoring for self-realization should similarly fear a materialistic person and a woman. Indeed, he should not even glance at their bodily features.
Aiche batta punarapi mukena nibe. Kahajadi tobe amaetana dekibe. But to charge, if you continue to speak like this, you will never see me here again. Therefore, you should never let such a request come from your mouth. Moi paya sarvabhoma nija kore gela. Pasai giya bhatta charja chintita hoila. Being afraid, Sarvabhauma returned home and began to meditate on the matter. So how deeply he's concerned for the welfare of the king. Really thinking about it. Enokale prataparudra purushottame haila pachamicha sange raja darashane cholila. At this time, Maharaj Prataparudra arrived at Jagannath Puri, Purushottam, and accompanied by his secretaries, ministers, and military officers, went to visit the temple of Lord Jagannath. Ramananda Raya Gajapati Sange Pratame Prabore Hasi Milila Bahurange. When King Prataparudra returned to Jagannath Puri, Ramananda Rai came with him. Ramananda Rai immediately went to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great pleasure. Rai pranati koilo Prabhu, koilo alingan, dui jane prema veshe koreng krandan. Upon meeting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramananda Rai offered his obeisances. The Lord embraced him, and both of them began to cry in the great ecstasy of love. Rai sange Prabhu deki sneha vyavahar, sarva bhakta gane mane hoilo chamatkar. Seeing Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's intimate dealings with Sri Ramananda Rai, all the devotees there were astonished. So, one point here which is interesting is that, Ramananda, more or less, he's in the same position as the king, right? Okay, he's not the king, but he's a subordinate to the king, but he acts, he has a very high position, and he acts on behalf of the king in many cases, and he was like ruling this area in South India that was under the rule of Orissa, right? So he was there practically like a king himself, right? Ruling this area in South India under the auspices of the king. So he's, more or less in the same position. But it's very curious. In the case of Ramananda, Mahaprabhu just throws that all out the window. Doesn't even consider. And why? We can think because there's such an intimate connection, right? Ramananda Rai is Vishaka Saki, right? So there's a very intimate connection in their eternal relationship. So in his case, Mahaprabhu's not even thinking about anything.
Didn't Ramananda Roy give that up, that position, and then came to Jagannath?
Yeah, that's what we're coming to right now, yeah. But at that time when they first met in South India, they both just immediately went and embraced each other, and everyone around them, Brahmananda has this whole entourage of 100 persons or something, and they're all astonished, why is this sannyasi, embracing, this person is practically like a Shudra, really engaged in worldly affairs, and they're astonished,
Isn't the king a Kshatriya?
Yeah. Kings are generally Kshatriyas, but Ramananda, he may be Kayasta class, and they're sometimes classed as Kshatriyas, sometimes classed as Shudras in different parts of India. Yeah. So all the devotees were astonished. Rai kohe tomar agya raja ke kohilo, tomar ichai raja mor vishoy charailo. Ramananda Rai said, I duly informed King Prataparudra of your order for me to retire from service. By your grace, the king was pleased to relieve me of these material activities. Amikohi amahoite nahoe vishoe, Chaitanya charane raho jadiya hoy. I said, Your Majesty, I am now not willing to engage in political activities. I desire only to stay at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kindly give me permission. Tomar nam shunira janandita hoilo, asana hoite uti more alingana koilo. When I submitted this proposal, the king immediately became very pleased upon hearing your name. Indeed, he instantly rose from his throne and embraced me. So Ramananda is also putting in a good word for the king here. Tomar nam shuni hoilo mahaprema vesh, mora hatte dori kore piditi vishesh. My dear Lord, as soon as the king heard your holy name, he was immediately overwhelmed by great ecstatic love. Catching my hand, he displayed all the symptoms of love. Tomar je vartan dumi kao se vartan, nischinta hoya bhaja chaitanya charan. As soon as he heard my petition, he immediately granted me a pension without reductions. Thus the king granted me a full salary as a pension, and requested me to engage without anxiety in the service of your lotus feet. And this example is also in this whole Leela going on, right, between the Lord and the king. This is another, as I mentioned, right, you see how the devotees are trying to, help the king. But another thing is you also see on the other side is how the king, he has this, he's not just directly approaching the Lord, but he also wants to serve the devotees of the Lord. And he has that feeling and understanding in his heart, right? That, the Lord, approaching the Lord means you're approaching a whole entourage, right? A whole group. And he's honoring and taking the opportunity eagerly to serve any of them. So he's showing this beautiful example. Then Maharaj Prataparudra very humbly said, I am most fallen and abominable, and I am unfit to receive an interview with the Lord. One's life is successful if one engages in his service. Padam kripalu teho bhajendra nandan, konjan memore vasya dibendarashan. The king then said, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda, he is very merciful, and I hope that in a future birth you will allow me an interview. Jeta premarti dekilu tomate, tareka premalesh nahiko amate. My Lord, I don't think that there's even a fraction of Maharaj Prataparudra's loving ecstasy in me. This is Ramananda speaking, right? He's so much greater of a devotee than I. Prabhu kohe tumi Krishna bhakata pradhan, tomake je priti kori se bhagyavam. Mahaprabhu said, My dear Ramananda Rai, you are the foremost of all the devotees of Krishna. Therefore, whoever loves you is certainly a very fortunate person. Tomate jeta priti hoilo rajar, e gune Krishna tade koribe angikar. Because the king has shown so much love for you, Lord Krishna will certainly accept him. So Mahaprabhu's, kind of like distancing himself from the whole thing. Krishna will accept him. He's asking for you to accept him. Krishna will give his mercy to him. But he's making this point, right? Because the king is serving the devotees of the Lord, then the Lord will accept him. And now there's this very nice verse from the Adi Purana. Gurudev liked this verse. Ye me bhakta janaparta na me bhaktas chate janaha. Mad bhakta nam chaye bhaktas te me bhakta tamamataha. Lord Krishna told Arjuna, those who are my direct devotees are actually not my devotees, but those who are the devotees of my devotees are factually my devotees. Now we have more quotes. I believe this is from Bhagavatam. Adara paricharyayam sarvangir abhivandanam mad bhakta puja abhyadika. This is the key line here. Mad bhakta puja abhyadika. The Lord saying the puja, the worship of my devotees, is even higher than the worship of myself. Mad bhakta puja abhyadika sarva bhuteshu manmatihi mad arteshvanga cheshta cha vachasa mad guneram nam mayarpanam cha manasa sarvakama vivarjanam. My devotees, so this is spoken by the Lord himself, my devotees take great care and respect in rendering me service. They offer obeisances to me with all their bodily limbs. They worship other devotees and find all living entities related to me. For me, they engage the entire energy. Oh dear. Oh dear. I think it's a British thing. They worship other devotees and find all living entities related to me. For me, they engage the entire energy of their bodies. They engage the power of speech in the glorification of my qualities and form. They also dedicate their minds unto me and try to give up all kinds of material desires. Thus, my devotees are characterized.
Could I still use them?
3-second rule.
What did he say?
3-second rule.
I was so fast.
Maybe you spray a little Ganga Jal or something. I think it's
And
okay.
they will be in ghee, right? So that's true.
I think that's okay. I mean, maybe some super strict Vidhi Marg people wouldn't accept it, but I think Raga Marg always comes to our relief. Now this is a famous verse. You probably know this verse. Radhananam sarvesham Vishnu radhanam param tasmat padatadam devi tadiyanam samarchanam. You recognize that verse? You should know this. This is spoken by Lord Shiva to Parvati. You'll know the translation. As we hear this one occasion, Parvati asked Lord Shiva, oh, what is the greatest type of worship, right? And Lord Shiva answered, the worship of Lord Vishnu, this is the highest. And then Parvati looked a little disappointed, right? Because she's worshipping Shiva. And then he said, however, the worship of the devotees of Vishnu is even higher. And then she became happy. So this verse is giving that answer. That out of all Radhananam Sarvesham, amongst all types of Aradhana, worship, Vishnu Aradhanam Param, the worship of Lord Vishnu is supreme. Tasmat, however, Devi, Tasmat Paratadam, even higher than that, Devi, Tadiyanam Samarchanam, is the worship of Tadiya. Tadiya, who is belonging to the Lord, who is dear to the Lord. I'll read this translation here, although the translation is a little convoluted. Lord Shiva told the goddess Durga, my dear Devi, although the Vedas recommend worship of demigods, the worship of Lord Vishnu is topmost. However, above the worship of Lord Vishnu is the rendering of service to Vaishnavas, who are beloved to Lord Vishnu. And now another quotation from Bhagavatam. Durapa hyalpa tapasa seva vaikunta vartmasu yatro bhagyate nityam deva devo janardanaha. Those whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees, progressing on the path back to the kingdom of Godhead, the Vaikunthas. Pure devotees engage 100% in glorifying the Supreme Lord, who is the Lord of the demigods and the controller of all living entities. I'll just read a few more verses. Puri Bharati Gosai Swarup Nityananda Jagadananda Mukundani Jata Bhakta Vrinda. Paramananda Puri, Brahmananda Bharati, Swarup Damodar Gosai, Lord Nityananda, Jagadananda Mukunda, and others were present before the Lord at that time. Chari Gosai Koilo Rai Charana Vandan Jata Jogja Sabhakta Kodilo Milan. Ramananda Rai therefore offered his obeisances to all the Lord's devotees, in particular to the four spiritual masters. Thus Ramananda Rai suitably met all the devotees. Prabhu Kohe Prabhu Kohe Rai Dekile Kamao Nayam Rai Kohe Bejai Pabodadashan. Now, the Bengali is so sweet. He's just saying, the Lord asked, "Oh Rai, did you see the lotus-eyed one?" That's all he said. Did you see the lotus-eyed? And then he replied, Rai Kohe Bejai Pabodadashan. I will go for that darshan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu next asked Ramananda Rai, "Have you already visited the temple of the lotus-eyed Lord Jagannath?" Ramananda Rai replied, "I shall now go to visit the temple." Prabhu Kohe Rai Tumi Kikarja Kodile Ishware na dekhi kene age taile. Mahaprabhu replied, "What have you done, my dear Rai? Why did you not first see Lord Jagannath and then come here? Why have you come here first?" Rai Kohe, so Mahaprabhu feels a little shy, right? You should have gone first to see and have the Lord's darshan. Rai Kohe Charanat Rindoy Sarati Jahalaya Jahaloya Jai Taha Jai Jivarati. Perfect answer. Very nice answer. You can't argue with this. Ramananda Rai said, "The legs are like the chariots, and the heart is like the charioteer. Wherever the heart takes the living entity is obliged to go. So what could I do?" My heart dictated to the chariot of my legs, and I had no choice in the matter. What could I do? Ami ki koribo, what will I do? Ami ki koribo man, ihalo yailo. Jagannadarashane vichana koilo. Ramananda Rai continued, "What shall I do? My mind has brought me here. I could not consider going first to Lord Jagannath's temple." Prabhu Kohe Shigra Giya Koro Darashan Aiche Gorjai Koro Kutumba Milan. Mahaprabhu advised, immediately go to Lord Jagannath's temple to see the Lord, then go home and meet your family members. Prabhu Agya Paya Rai Cholila Darashane Raya Prema Bhakti Diti Bhuje Konjane. Having received Mahaprabhu's permission, Ramananda Rai hastily went to the temple of Lord Jagannath. Who can understand the devotional service of Rai Ramananda? There's a similar kind of incident. Is it earlier or is it later? Actually, I think it might be in this chapter, maybe later on. I don't remember exactly where. Around this part of Chaitanya Charitamrita. When the king, Prataparuja, he's on a rooftop and he's observing. He happens to be there, or maybe he deliberately goes to have a better view. But anyhow, he's on a rooftop and he's watching. You remember, as these 200 Mahabhagavat devotees, headed by Advaita Acharya. And was Nityananda part of that group? I don't remember. They're arriving from Nadia, right, from the Navadvip area. They're coming to Puri to see Mahaprabhu. And the king is on a rooftop watching this scene. And he's very surprised because he sees that they ignore the general formalities that people follow when they. Because normally when you first come to a holy place, there are all these different codes of conduct, that you're meant to follow. You're meant to shave. You're meant to go bathe in the river. You're meant to fast, and then like after bathing, the first thing you'll do is go for the darshan of the Lord, right? So you go to the Jagannath temple. But the king is observing how all these devotees, they're just going straight to where Mahaprabhu is staying. And then not only that, but Mahaprabhu is sending prasadam for them. Mahaprabhu is making arrangements for like grand prasadam and sending for them. And so they're not fasting, right? They're not bathing in the river first. They're not even going to see Lord Jagannath, right? They're just going straight to the Lord, to Mahaprabhu. And so the king is just puzzled by this. And he's with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who, by the way, has only just very recently been converted himself to all of this, And so the king's like asking him, like, oh, what is all of this? And not criticizing, just genuinely puzzled and surprised. And then Sarvabhauma gives an explanation about Vidhi Marg and Raga Marg, right? Yes, there are two expressions of devotion, right? One is Vidhi Marg, according to the rules, regulations of the scripture. The other is Raga Marg, spontaneous flow of the heart, And so this is the expression of devotion that they are showing here. Any last comments or questions or anything? Anyone? We close there. Jai Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki Jai, Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami ki Jai. Who will sing? Who will sing? Sachi Devi will sing.
Hari Haraya Namah Krishnaya Radhavaya Namah.
Hari Haraya Namah Krishna Jadavaya Namaha.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Govindaram Srimad Visuddham. Giridhari Govinda Namaha. Sri Sri Guru Gauranga Sundar Radha Giridhara Ju Ki Jai. Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nimalachaya Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakak Sita Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Sri Rupa Nuga Govarga Ki Jai. Namachaya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Om Vishnupad Vishwavarena Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat Sri Acharya Vrinda Ki Jai. Sabhashada Sri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Sabhashada Sri Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. Ganga Yamuna Ju Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai. Sri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Sri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat East London Chapter Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat West London Chapter Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees Ki Jai. All glories to the world devotees Ki Jai. Sri Yukta Bishaka Didi Ki Jai. Sri Ekadasi Vrata Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari.